I'm sorry, and some shit went down with some clients yesterday, and I literally just like threw gas on top of them and set them on fire. I was like, I'm fucking so agitated. I'm just gonna burn
And
your
we're
shit,
live.
burn your
Welcome to
shit down.
episode 12 of Yanking Chains. I'm Matt Beaumont,
I'm Vince Matteo, the fire starter.
And I'm Maria Simone, the
and
fireball starter.
Nice.
this week we're going to talk about what you're doing wrong when training and racing. So, Vince, I feel like you want to say something.
About what?
I'm not sure.
Well, you raced last weekend. Maybe we start, we'll do a
Yeah.
little recap here. Vince went back to road racing in the marathon.
Phew. Wow, that's it was interesting. At the end of it, I I wasn't as destroyed as I would normally have expected to have been, but I just don't have that kind of speed anymore. And I kind of, when we all go in, we're like, okay, this is my target and this is what I think I can do. And then, of course, at the end of it, I was a little disappointed because, like Maria, I have super secret goals. And I just thought, oh, well, maybe this will actually work out better. You never know. I mean, but I had no, normally when somebody goes in, we'll have like a TT and we can take a bunch of other stuff. And I had none of that except for a couple of really long runs where I was kind of hitting some different targets to kind of get a feel for things. Um, and my legs just don't know what the hell that speed is. I mean, it felt so foreign at the end. I was like, I'm at the end. My heart rate was like at the top. I probably had an extra gear, and I wasn't really interested in destroying myself, but my legs just didn't know how to move like that fast. And I saw some pictures at the end, and my form looked good. I just think it's been so long since I've run that fast that it's completely foreign. Of course, now it's like I want to run another fucking marathon because I know I can do better than that.
It's
When
always
was
the
the
case.
when was the last time you ran that fast?
Probably the last time I did an Ironman. I mean, yeah, I
So
mean,
when
I
was
would
that?
say,
Three,
yeah, I mean,
4 years?
I'd say the first Ironman you and I did together, what was that, 2014? I was running pretty fast back then still. I felt like I had some good foot speed. It didn't feel
Hmm.
foreign to me to run like that. Um, and then obviously the year before that, but I mean, last time I did a marathon standalone for time was like, I don't know, 2012 or 20, yeah, like 2012 or 2011. So I definitely like had fallen off of that, and I'd gone into this thing thinking, well, 315 is definitely like a solid number, and then I was thinking, because it seemed pretty easy to hit like 3 hour pace. Not that I would run 3 hours, but it just seemed like it would be maybe faster than 315. But by the end of it, my legs were just like, I don't like moving this fast. And it was funny though. I mean, like when Napa, they say it's a net downhill, but it's actually rolls. And there's some segments that are kind of like 1-2% grade that kind of climb up. Man, I was passing people on that, but then like get on the other side of that and go down, and I was like, I don't know what to do with my legs. Anyway, so how was Vale?
Oh, so I went to Vail area and snowboarded all weekend.
Nice.
It was awesome.
Little cross training for
Little
you.
cross training, elevate, little altitude. Um,
Nice.
oh, it was beautiful. They got some snow, and Otago got a ton of snow
Wait,
this
they had
weekend.
snow? Wait, hold on. Wait, what?
Yeah. Well, I
There was
mean,
snow there?
one like this global
Is
warming
it
drought
cold
going
for
on.
you? Is it too
It,
early?
it wasn't even that cold. It was actually kind of warm, but the snow was beautiful, and we yeah, I didn't get hurt, so that's good.
Bonus. Huge bonus.
Bonus. No one got hurt. Um,
Yeah, I give you a lot of credit. John and I both stopped skiing when we started
yeah,
doing Ironman. He's gone back. I haven't. I'm like,
man, I'd almost stopped doing Ironman to keep skiing.
Wow.
I'm not that good. I mean, I'm good, but like, man,
I'm good, but
I might be better at snowboarding than I'm at Ironman. But man, there's something about it's. I don't know. I love
cool.
snowboarding. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
John really likes it too.
you can't be that good because you don't smoke pot.
Yeah, it is a requirement. We also stopped doing that when we started doing Ironman too. No, way before that.
Oh man, oh man,
It's been
oh
a
man.
long time for me before I did that, since I've done that. Anyway.
Oh, what happened?
What happened?
Somebody got dumped.
I talk too fast.
Oh.
Oh, and now we got a doppelganger Matt down in the
Oh,
bottom.
yeah, look at that. Look at that. Matt, talk.
Hey.
Okay. All right, you're still working. It just
Yeah, the other one, the other one's right next to you.
I love it. I love how it's frozen. It's funny.
No.
There you go.
And then Maria, you what? Are you a week out?
1 week from today.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, ow.
1 week from today, I will be 43 minutes into the swim.
Oh, jeez.
Mm-hmm. Starts at 8, so I guess because of the time change, it's actually not going to. The way the sun rises, usually it starts at 7, but it's the way the sun rises, it's like going to be a little dark at 7, so they're just letting it go to 8, which is fine. I don't really, whatever.
On a double Ironman,
Is it double Ironman?
Yeah. So how do they break up the distances? Do you swim, bike, and then run?
Nope. All swim, all bike, all run. So 4.8 miles, 224 miles on the bike, and then a double marathon. So
non-stop?
Well, once the clock starts, your time goes. So you can stop. You have 36 hours. You have 36 hours to finish. But if you stop, it's on you. That goes against your clock. So I did not stop last year. So it took me 25 hours and 41 minutes last year. But it's a different course this year. And then there's hills on the course this year, and it's open water versus pool swim. So I feel like I am a better swimmer this year than I was last year, but I think I'm probably going to lose that time because it's open water. And so I'll probably break even on the swim. The bike is hilly, a little hilly. I mean, it's not like Lake Placid or, Wisconsin hilly, but for 224 miles, I'm going to notice it.
Yeah, I know.
Like 1%, Greg.
Well, yeah.
Gotta get my granny gear.
Yeah. All the climbs are short, but I wouldn't even call them a climb. I mean, that's ridiculous to call them. They are like 2 or 3%, and I feel like I'm gonna have to be really careful in the first half of the bike, not to get out of control on those. Just like an ultra, just like the hundreds, it's the same. And even really an Ironman, honestly, like even like Lake Placid, I think one of the reasons why I like that course so much is you really have to be honest on the first loop, and I think this double is going to be the same way. Like you just have to really be honest and really conservative and just put your ego aside. And I'm actually pretty good at that as a racer. Like once the gun goes off, like before and after, I'm not very good at it, but during the race, I'm pretty good at like not getting too irritated by, oh, it's too slow, it's too fast, it's too this, it's too that. So I think I'm, especially with the bike, because I know what my numbers need to be, so I'm just going to sit on them, and whatever the speed winds up being is whatever it winds up being. And then the run, so it's so the swim is 4.8 miles, but it's 12 laps, so roughly 700-ish yards per lap. And you just swim out and back and out and back. And you do that because you come back and your crew's there and you can get fuel and whatever you need. And it's also safer from a race director's perspective. You send somebody out 2.4 miles, I hope they're all right out there, So it's just easier to and there are alligators in the lake that we're swimming in, so that's fun.
Oh.
Yeah. They say they're lethargic this time of year. So am I. And then the bike is 37 laps.
Oh.
So it's like 6-ish miles. And then you come around it. It's really, man, it's not that bad. I'm telling you. It's
37.
I don't mind a lap course. And then the run is 2 miles, so what, like 26 laps.
Oh my God.
But the run's part trail, which is kind of cool. It's like a mile on the road, a mile on trail. So that'll be a little slower than. So all of this is to say the course this year is a little slower than last year's course. So I'm not really shooting for a PR necessarily. I mean, if it happens, I'm not gonna like put it away. But I feel like I am a better athlete this year than I was last year, just because of the kind of training I put in. And I'm not quite as mentally beat this year as I was last year. So I'm hoping to have a good race. I have super secret goals, but they're going to stay that way. Post race, I'll share them, but right now.
How many people are racing?
Well, there's some teams and individual racers, and I think between all of us, there's like 30-ish of us.
It's been a lonely day.
Yeah, because of the loop course. It's
Oh,
actually not
it's
that
moved up.
bad.
Okay, yeah. So
It's not that bad.
It
But
is a bit
yeah,
of a fringe sport.
that is.
a bit of a fringe sport. It is. It is a bit of a fringe
Are
sport.
we gonna be able to track you online?
You can track online. You can. It's not. I think it actually works better than Ironman tracking. Of course,
That's because there's only 30 of you.
They have manual updates. There's some guy drawing.
I know, there could be
Um,
30 people that monitor each person in the race and individually upload.
almost could be like that, but yeah, no, it is computerized. We do have chips and stuff. But
Nice.
But it's really, I mean, if you have the chance to go watch one, there's one actually up in Oregon. It's the same guy that does the one in Florida and in Virginia. It's really a neat event. It's not like an Ironman at all. It's not even like a local triathlon. It's just it's a super neat event. I mean, the people I met last year, I'm friends with now. I mean, it's like, how can you not like
Yeah.
create this tight community? It's quite an experience. It's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've been super busy, so I haven't had a lot of chance to like focus on it, but I'm coming into spring break, so I'm going to be able to kind of get my plan together because there's a lot of moving parts, so you really have to communicate a lot with your crew. So I got to get my list together for the kid that crewed me last year is going to crew me again this year, and we had a good rhythm by the end of the race, and so I think he gets it, and we'll be able to work really well together. Because that's important. I mean, your crew can save you a shit ton of time. All the bottle handoffs, having your food ready, all that kind of stuff, and just keeping your head, like Javelina, and keeping your head straight. You know, because you start to get a little, I get a little punch drunk. Like last year on the run, I was totally punch drunk. I remember coming in one time like, I'm totally feeling I'm on drugs, and I did, but I wasn't. It's just like you just felt like I don't know. I felt like I was in outer space at one point. It was crazy.
Who's crewing for you?
We actually have a couple people that I coach are actually coming down to crew because both John and I are doing it. And my friend Patty lives in Tampa. She actually changed my clothes in T2 last year, took my pants off, and put new ones on. She loves me. Good friend right there. Seriously good friend.
That's serious.
That's serious friend right there. She's coming back, and then our friends Bill and Mary Jane are coming too. So we have a good crew. They'll be able to, and it's important I think for them to have because the first year John did it, it was me and John's parents, and you start to really get tired. So when there's a big group of people, you can kind of keep yourselves occupied.
This is really bad, but the first thing that came to my mind when you said Patty changed your pants is that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're dirty.
No, I was thinking of your episode.
Yeah,
I didn't. No, it was just get out of bike shorts and put on a new pair of pants to run in. Just for comfort.
My mind went there.
But
all right. So this week's episode, which one of you proposed this? You're doing it wrong. Was it Vince or?
It was me.
Vince's.
Yeah.
What do you mean by you're doing it wrong?
Well, it seems like I spend a lot of time on Twitter and I just because I have athletes I coach and friends and it's like group text is what it is, and it just seems like within the last couple of weeks there have been a few conversations that I'm just like I'm looking at my computer and I'm like no you're doing it wrong and and some of them some of them are coached by other people, some of them I don't coach, and so you got to be careful about like unsolicited advice. One of the conversations is.
All right, but just to preface this, we're giving unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they came to us, so that's different.
Okay.
This is our show. This isn't Twitter, and so. One of the things that comes up every year is I'm not going to swim because I suck at swimming.
Oh,
and
doing it wrong.
It's the least. Because
it's my pet peeve.
Because Ironman is like this long and the swim is like this long, and the first thing we can all throw into this, but the first thing I would say is it's up front, and so. What happens in that swim, even though it's short, is going to cascade into the bike and it's going to cascade into the run. So you might think that it's only impacting this 1-ish hour segment of the race, but really it's not. It's probably doing a lot more damage than that. And the
Yep.
easiest way to see this is when you get out of the water and you get on the bike, look at your heart rate.
Yep.
And if your heart rate, and it probably was going to be like 20 beats higher than where it should be, it's going to sit there, and at least for the first 30 minutes probably, it's not going to come down. And then that's going to come down. And if you think about, Ironman as an energy problem, that is impacting your energy system right there. So if you're having a crap run, it could be because of all this energy that you burned up front. So that's my number one. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I want to add to the swimming too, because I actually think swimming is important for crossover fitness too. So not just the race itself and coming out of the water feeling like that didn't just happen, but I think that the time you spend in the pool has overall benefit for you in biking and running, and I think that it does minimal damage to your body. Unless you've got like shoulder issues, then I mean obviously you've got to be careful what you do, but I think that you get a lot of fitness from swimming, and I think that swim training should not be underrated in any way, shape, or form. And I think too, if you get yourself all worked up in the swim, you can also create stomach problems because you can suck in too much air. I did this when I was, remember Vince in Mont Tremblant, when I made myself all nervous and I had stomach cramps for the whole race. I did that to myself because I got myself so, not because I didn't do swim training, I did, but I was just almost on the verge of hyperventilating because I was so nervous. But if maybe you're not nervous, but you're in the swim and you're working harder than you need to be, you're sucking in too much air, it's going to create all kinds of issues. So do not swim. That is a bad move. Bad move.
Yeah, I mean, I would say at the very least, get some swim training in, because the first time even after like years and years and years of swimming, I would take a couple of months off at the end of the year, and I would get back in the water in January, and I'd be out of breath. I couldn't swim
Yep.
25 yards. So somebody who's not swimming as much as I was, and then going back in, it's got to be that much worse.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, a minimal amount of swimming, and I would say frequency over volume. If you're just trying to like not spend time in the pool, I mean, I could beat that dead horse forever and ever and ever. And the one thing that I was thinking, because I was thinking about this conversation before we had the podcast, and I think what happens is people look at triathlon as three sports, and it's not. It's triathlon, and just think about it in terms of, like all the people that are good swimmers, in Ironman, they're not good swimmers in the swimmer world. And the same goes for, I mean, of course you get like, the occasional, like Andy Potts or whatever that comes into it, but pretty much everybody else is kind of a mediocre, like Olympic level swimmer. And anybody that's like a road cyclist for a living is way better than anybody in Ironman, except for, again, who's the guy that's up in Danville, Chris Lieto?
Yeah.
And running, same thing, but it's triathlon. It's one sport, and I think if you think about it in terms of that, then you would maybe appreciate the swim a little bit more,
Yep.
because it is part of that sport.
And I think too, if you're not good at something, you're never going to get good at it by not doing it.
Right.
You're definitely not going to improve yourself. And I know, like in my personal experience, I made my biggest jump when I started swimming 4 days a week. I went from an hour and a half down to, I think, what did we do that year, Vince? Hour 12 at Mont Tremblant or something like that. So I went so I chopped, basically 20 minutes off of my swim time just by adding a fourth day. And I mean, some more focused swimming too, for sure. But I think that, and then from there, keeping that up, eventually we got me down to 101. Never mind the current assist. We don't need to talk about that. Still 101 on the internet. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
So I think if you're out there and you're swimming 2 hours, for example, just swim a little bit more. Or if you're swimming an hour and a half and you think I can never swim an hour 15 or an hour 10, I call bullshit on that, because I've already done that trajectory. You have to swim.
Especially if you're a slower swimmer, if you swim a lot with horrible form, and I'm talking about me, because I have the worst swim form ever, and I do. My swim form is horrible, but I was typically swimming right around an hour, and I just decided that I was going to swim a lot, and I managed to whittle that down. And I think if you're like a 130 swimmer, you could easily whittle that down with just like a solid season of swimming. And
Mhm.
then let's compound that. We have a friend that I'm going to say a friend that has a slot for Hawaii, and she is not a good swimmer. Especially in Hawaii, and the problem with not swimming in a situation like that is you're coming out of the water last, and when you get into transition is completely empty. And so now not only did you have, not a great swim, but you're demoralized by the fact that everybody has already left transition. So now that adds to the equation. I just think you got to spend some time in the water and just kind of bite the bullet and do it.
Mhm.
How
I
do
think
you feel about? So I was snowboarding this weekend, in case you were wondering. Um,
and there was snow there.
there was snow, but I was snowboarding with some of my cousins, and one of them she just set the state record in the 50 free in Colorado. And so she was giving me tips, which I was like, oh, thanks.
Unsolicited advice.
Unsolicited, speaking of unsolicited advice, no, she's very, very, very talented. Uh, but they're talking a lot about doing high intensity swimming and not as much volume. Are you doing it wrong then? Would you recommend that?
I think it depends. I think if you're doing high intensity swimming and at their level where they have like, hello. I'm not opposed to high intensity swimming, and if you look at how I schedule the week, there's definitely a sampling of it, but there's definitely a pyramid to everything, right? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of this, and then as the intensity increases, it starts going towards the top of the pyramid. When you're at that level and your form is absolutely perfect, I think you probably do more of it, and you see the same thing in runners, like going to the track and doing a lot more like speed work on the track. I don't. Yeah, but I mean, for us, we're training for a distance, and I think if you start playing around with too much top work, you might get hurt. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely something you can play around with in the swim more than, say, the bike and run.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that this piggybacks on another thing that I wanted to bring up in terms of you're doing it wrong if, right? So you might be doing it wrong if you're not thinking about the totality of your race season and what you want to accomplish that season. So let's connect this to what Vince just said about intensity in the swim. There's a time and place for high intensity, and if you're trying to swim the fastest 50 meter in your state, then yeah, that's specific to your race. But that is not specific to 2.4 miles or 1.2 miles, or or if you're doing sprint triathlons, then yeah, the ratio of your high intensity to endurance training is going to be different. And there's a time and a place in your overall yearly calendar to do some higher end work. But if you're coming into like sort of the race specific phase of your training, you need to be doing training that is specific to your race. And again, like Vince said, there's pieces of high intensity that are there because, in some cases, a rising tide lifts all boats. But in the same vein, it doesn't matter how fast you can swim a 50 or 100 if you can't translate that to 2.4 miles. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So I think that one thing that I see a lot is this lack of attention to how not only triathlon's all one sport and the swim and the bike and the run fit together, but your year all matters together. What you're doing in January, you need to be thinking about whatever that A race is. So and all of the choices you make, not just for the races you pick, but the workouts and the blocks that you put together. If you're going to do a 6-week swim block or bike block, how is this all building to what it is you want to accomplish on that race day? And I think sometimes we see a tendency, a lot of people want to just race all the time or over race or put training together that doesn't make any sense for your weaknesses. I think this is the biggest thing that I learned working with Vince as his athlete is because I had a 2 to 3 year goal, right? So I didn't, like, at the time, I didn't know what he was doing, but looking back, I'm like, I see where we were going with all this. And the first place you started with me, Vince, was the swim, because it was off season. I had just come off of a season. I actually had a leg injury, so I couldn't run a lot because I had IT band syndrome for like ever. And and all I could do was swim, and so that's what we did. And so when you look at that kind of stuff, it's not just that so that it's not just that race or that block or that workout. It's how is this all fitting together? And if you can't put those pieces together, you need to talk to somebody who can put those pieces together, because you're doing it wrong if not.
I like it how that keeps coming back into it. So I think if we look at it holistically, we're going to assume this is how I do it, and this is how you do it. I think we're all coming out of an off season. And if that is the case for everyone, and it should be, then the first thing we're going to try to do is get our fitness back and get back to being able to tackle this distance. And then from there, so if you're looking at Friel, right? So that's your base period. And then, so after that, now we're trying to get our speed back. So we're going to start sharpening up, and then then he goes peak and taper. So I don't necessarily follow that exactly, but the general idea of we're coming out of our off season and I can't even ride 100 miles, so I just got to start logging miles back again. And then I know Matt asked me, he's like, well, why is my fitness back not back yet to where it was at the end of last season? Because we're not near a race yet. It's like.
But I will tell you this, Matt, that your fitness will not only come back to where it was last season, it's going to be better. So once you will be improved. There's zero doubt to that in my mind. Just follow this, because it really does work. And I think that's the hardest thing to sort of do. And this is another thing I put on my list of you're doing it wrong. Or I phrase it like Jeff Foxworthy style. You might be doing it wrong if. I think part of this is you might be doing it wrong if you're not considering recovery a part of your training. So this includes off season as a recovery period, and if you don't take that, you're in trouble. But also recovery through each training cycle and each week. And recovery does not mean a rest day. Recovery is a lot of different things that you could be doing. So I think, Matt, don't worry about your fitness. And here we go into the self-help portion for Matt.
Yes.
It's going to come back, and you're going to be actually more fit than you were last year.
Yeah, I mean, there is a point of diminishing returns, though, so don't, I mean, and you're not there yet because you're still kind of new to this, but I noticed that especially as you start getting towards the pointy end of the field, your fitness comes back and you gain, but it was like, oh, I went from a 103 swimmer to a 101 swimmer, and I was swimming 12K weeks repetitively, and it's like, wow, I only got 2 whole minutes out of that, but it adds up. You get 2 minutes there, and I got 15 minutes on the bike, and I got 4 minutes on the run, and there you go. I mean, that's what you get out of it.
And when you're talking about Kona slots being determined by 90 seconds, that's shit now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think were you making a reference to you?
I'm just saying sometimes people lose Kona slots by 90 seconds. It happens.
No. I know, but I mean, was
that no, but I just mean it all adds up. It's so you might go from the very beginning of the sport, you might measure progress in hour PRs, but eventually it's going to come down to 5 minutes. But you're still sort of. I'm reiterating what you're saying, and if you think that 90 seconds here and 90 seconds there doesn't matter. It does. It totally matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think I went from, and there was a year in there that I didn't have a PR, but I went from 11, and then 2 years later I went to 10, and that was a big jump. And then after that, man, it was just whittling off minutes.
Yeah.
And I think when you get down to the pro level, I mean, I bet they'd be like, oh my God, I had 2 minute PR, woohoo!
Yeah.
Because when you're 8:05 to 8:03, you're not gonna have a 15-minute PR on the bike.
Side note: did you guys see the results for Ironman New Zealand?
No. Why? What happened?
Everyone went. There was 10 people or something that went right around 8:40 or something crazy like that.
Wow.
There's a whole bunch of people, man. We gotta get faster.
Are you talking about age groupers?
No.
Oh.
The pros, but they all put together a real solid race.
Huh.
I think there was an age group where went under 9. I was like, dang.
Damn. Fast pants.
We gotta get faster, kids.
I just got to keep going longer. That's all. I just keep going more and more into the fringe part of this sport. It's not hard to be the fastest of the crazies. You know what I mean?
Right. I had to put my glasses on to go back to my list. I know. It's like it's so foreign to like
Yeah.
go back to the shorter stuff, and longer just seems so easier and more appealing. I'm like, I should run 200, and I'm not going
Oh, I'm
to.
totally into the 200. Let's do it.
Oh
God,
God.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I have some 100-mile goals right now.
Yeah,
Um,
I do too.
so
So
I want to when I can run a mountain 100. I mean, and obviously if it's got some crazy, steep in it, but when I can run a mountain 100, then I think I'll look at some other stuff. But for now, I'm sticking with hundreds.
so when you turn yourself into Robbie Krar, you're gonna go do something.
When I turn myself into Rob Carr, I think I started growing my beard out, and
Yeah.
and I said, you know what, I'm just not going to be that guy. I shaved all day.
I
You,
like to be I'm going to be a well manicured ultra runner.
you may never see me with a beard ever again, but who knows? So the next thing I kind of wanted to touch on is this. I think my bullet point says you're moving up too quickly, and I think what happens is. You go out there and you do a 5K run, and your friend's like, "Oh, somebody, did a marathon," and then there's this urge to go do a marathon because for like validation or whatever. And I think if you're a bucket list person and you're like, I want to do a marathon, I want to do an Ironman, I want to do a 50-mile run, then that is cool. But if you have goals and you're in this for the long term, I think it's beneficial to move up a little slower. And that's not to say that you need to spend like 10 years doing something, because you don't need to be a pro or whatever. But I think moving up slowly is going to help your body develop, and with us doing the ultra stuff, you can see it. I mean, like, I've been doing Ironman for years, and then I went out there and I did my first 50 miler, and I knew it. I was like, wow, this feels very awkward. The distance was foreign to me. My body was just hurting all the time, not in a bad way, but it's just it had not adapted. And then I jumped up to the 100, and yes, I do the same thing. I jump up to distances too quickly, and
I was going to say, this sounds.
This is well.
Let's go to
Sometimes
200. This sounds so
yeah.
fitting.
sometimes
but
because you did it, and you're like, that I did it wrong.
yeah. I mean, you look back and you're like, yeah, I did it wrong. And like after my first 100, my back was like the worst. It took me about 3 months to get over. It just felt like I had lost an inch of height because my back was so compressed. And I actually thought I might not do another 100
Mhm.
if this happens again, because it felt like I had done some real damage to it. And now I don't feel like that at all. But I think maybe if I'd have spent a little more time, maybe another season of doing, some 50s or whatever, that maybe that would have been a little better. And again, if you're a bucket lister, like I coach somebody, and she's doing her first 100, and she's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this again. She feels like she's in really good shape now, and she doesn't know what the future is going to be like. And I'm like, okay, I'm on board for that. I get it. But if your goal is to be good at this, I think just spend a little time developing. Maybe just go into like into the world of like anti-social media or something, and get away from your friends who are like, oh, I'm doing hundreds and 200s and 500s and whatever, and I don't know why you're not doing them.
Are you
Because
mimicking
we
me?
know. Go ahead. What's
Are
that?
you mimicking me?
No, but you know what it is, right? I mean, it's like, we know so many people that are doing so many bigger distances, like, and they're like, oh, well, I want to do what you're doing. It's like, yeah, but I've been doing this for so long. I started doing this stuff competitively in 2008. So we're in 2016 now, and there are people that haven't even done their first marathon. They're like, I want to do a 100 miler. It's like, God. Anything to add?
I think that also. I think that can lead into also another one you have on your list here about injuries, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
might get away with it. You might get away with it, but you do risk putting your body in a place that it can't handle. And I think, when I ran my first 50 miler, it was actually 2 months after my first Ironman. That was an enormous mistake. I was doing it wrong, like way wrong. And that was back in 2010, and that was when that triggered basically over a year of off and on IT band syndrome, because I just pushed my body and my muscles were not prepared. They weren't even recovered from the Ironman, and now I'm going and running my first 50 miler. I mean, I had done a 50K, I'd done a few 50Ks prior to that, but it was too much on my body to make that transition, and I wasn't paying attention, and I was trying to add too much into my calendar, and I was making these enormous mistakes, and I wasn't thinking about the totality of my race season, and I just wanted to do stuff, let's go out and I'm so excited, this is so much fun, yeah, and then I couldn't do almost anything the way I wanted to for over a year, so that stopped.
We do that too, when especially if you put together a really good season and you get to the end of it and you're like, I don't want it to be over. I have all of this fitness and I have more things I want to do. And you just start like throwing stuff out there and throwing stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a background in marathoning, and even after doing an Ironman, you jumped up to a 50 and you got hurt. And I had a background in marathoning, and I was doing Ironman, but I was trying to move things up too quickly,
Yeah.
and I kept getting hurt. And I would just see this, like this theme showing up, and I started slowing it down a bit. And even now, like the first time I was eligible to throw my name in for states, I didn't, because I was like, I'm not ready for it. And an older version of me would have been like, shit, I want to sign up for states. So at least I have some sort of common sense at this point. And I just think that people who kind of they get into this cycle where they get hurt, and they whoa, is that the cat?
Dog is chasing her. There's dog and cat wars going on in my house.
That was awesome. I was like, what the hell?
Dog and cat wars.
And I think with injury, I'm working with someone right now who, my cardinal rule is, if you get hurt, you tell me. Yeah. And he didn't tell me for a month.
Matt.
No.
I tell him all my
I'm
feelings.
just kidding.
I have lots of feels. I tell Vince.
All the feels.
All the feels.
All the feels. And it's really simple. If you just stop, like something hurts, you just stop immediately and take a few days off. Usually you can nip it right then and there, but people tend, I'm just going to push it or whatever. And I think at a certain point you know the difference between good and bad, and you maybe can play with that. But I think early on you're just so afraid to stop. And I'm looking at not just people that I coach, but I'm looking at a ton of people that are really messed up right now, and and they've got a race, a season full of races sitting in front of them. And I just think it's really beneficial if you just kind of stop for a second and try to figure out what's going on, and then bring it back in slowly. So the person who I'm dealing with that's got an injury, I'm like, all right, let's take a couple of days off, do a 15-minute run. Well, what about if I do 30? No, do 15. Mm-hmm. Do 15, and then let's take a day off and let's see how you feel. And it's been, I think we're coming up on 2 weeks, and now we're injury-free. So a month of dragging that on, and was going to continue dragging that on unless I had stopped it. And now here we are 2 weeks, and it almost seems to be gone. So it really is kind of that simple. I just think you need to step back from it and kind of take a break from it.
And I think the other thing, too, when it comes to injuries is we're all busy, right? And there's only so much crap you can fit into your schedule. And this goes back to my other thing about recovery. I think a really important part about recovery is having a good protocol. I know it's crazy stuff in here. If we had the chickens in here, it'd be even better. But I think an important part of recovery is having sort of a health team in place. So for me, a health team means some kind of like chiropractic care or ART or pick your thing, right? Like, so I like to go to a chiropractor. I have a massage therapist she is the bomb. I mean, if I could clone her and put her in every region, she is the bomb. She has really, honestly, in the last 2 years of all this crazy 25-hour training weeks and running 100 miles and all this kind of shit, she has kept me healthy. I mean, she saves me every time. So I think we have a tendency to think that like massage, maybe not chiropractor or doctor so much, but it's like a luxury. It is not. And if it feels good and you're falling asleep, your massage therapist is doing it wrong. Just saying. It shouldn't be like total pain either, but it should, a good solid myofascial release should have some uncomfortable moments in it. Otherwise, it's not doing what it needs to be doing. And I mean, obviously, you want to time that kind of stuff, because like when I get them, like the next day, I'm definitely like, everything's not like, it's all like sluggish and all that kind of stuff. So you don't want to do it like right before a race or right before a big training week. But if you've got a recovery week, a reduced load week, or a rest day coming up, I think massage is not a luxury. Going to the chiropractor is not, or something like that. If you've got a good healthcare team, it's not optional, and I think it can help prevent some of these issues, because these people, if they're good and they know how athletes' bodies work, and I think that that's a really important caveat, is you've got to go to people who understand athletes and understand how their bodies work, because we're not like other people at all. Like just as one example, I used to go and get physicals, and my resting heart rate is like 39, 40, which is pretty low. It might be a little higher now because I'm a little older, but every time, wow, your resting heart rate is much too low. And then they give me an EKG. This is coming back abnormal. I'm like, it's coming back abnormal because my resting heart rate is low. And then they go, and then I got to go get the stress test. I'm like, and then everything's fine, but I could have told you that. So now I go to doctors who get that I'm fine. Like, it's not a problem. So I think that's important. And this is not a luxury. It's not something that's optional. It will keep you healthy. In addition to, if something does come up, it's not like it's foolproof, but if something does come up, like Vince said, back it off. Don't keep slugging through pain. More running doesn't make IT band syndrome go away. Just as an example.
What is it? Right. Problems do not get better with age.
No, and especially any kind of tendonitis is not going to be improved by repeated use of that tendon.
Yeah, I've got a doing it wrong one that I think goes along with that, and this would be a Matt Momont doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong if you're not eating right after you work out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Let me tell you how great that is. Vince convinced me to just go buy Ensure. I'm kind of anal about what I put in my body when I eat. Like, oh, Ensure is so unhealthy. It's not real food. It's pretty good after a workout.
I used to buy the cases at Costco.
Yeah, I'm a case buyer now. It is pretty convenient. To have it in your swim bag. You come out of the water and immediately put in 400 calories at 350. I love how it says to maintain or gain a healthy weight. I'm like, yep, that's what I need. Very few diet foods are like to maintain or gain weight. That's what you want. But that is awesome. I seriously huge believer in Ensure now. I've just noticed the difference in the past few weeks.
There's that window of opportunity right after the workout where your body wants to put away that sugar, and it decreases, and then we'll eventually go back to normal. And I got to the point where and like within the first 15 minutes, they say, is really when you can like maximize like replenishing those stores. And I was religious, man. Like I would come in the door, I would grab something, and I would down that, and that's a perfect combination. It's 4-to-1 carbs, and that's what your body wants to see. And sorry, I got distracted. My phone started ringing. And I noticed a difference. And you can try it like Matt did, and I think you'll see that.
And I thought, I try to make a protein shake even afterward. It's just so much effort, and I don't know. Like my life is crazy. My work is pretty stressful, and I'm just like I don't have time to carry around cold. I keep stuff cold, and so having an Ensure, I'm going to be sponsored by Ensure here. So
yeah. That's funny.
Just having it in your bag, I think you can cook that stuff and it's still edible, and it's highly recommended.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, and that's what I would also consider part of like a recovery protocol. Because if you don't do that, it's just affecting the next day.
Yeah, I mean all that stuff like the foam roller and massages, and if if things are tight, ART. I think especially the more you do this stuff, the more of that stuff you need to incorporate into it.
Yep.
Yeah, and finding the right people. Like I went to that one guy, somebody was like, "Oh, you should go get art," and I went to that one guy. And now I look back and I'm like, that guy's a quack. I mean, he didn't know what the hell he was doing, and all he was doing was hurting me. Um, and then I had seen somebody else a couple years later, and I'm like, this guy really knows what the hell he's doing. And so definitely find the right dude. Look for recommendations.
Yep.
There's probably people in your local community that you can talk to and get a good rec.
Yeah, you definitely want a recommendation because the wrong person can wreck you.
Yeah.
Because I mean they're prodding and poking and doing all kinds of stuff, but the right person it'll feel like they're hurting you, but they're helping you.
Yeah. Well, it was a little of both, but I walked
Yeah.
away and I was
Yeah.
definitely he hurt me. I was like,
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah, yeah, no, you don't want that. But yeah. What else we
So
got? What else are we doing
um
wrong? I got one too. I got another one. You're doing it wrong if you work harder or easier than a workout prescribes.
yeah. That's a well I can back in my really early days, all of my workouts were done at high intensity because why not?
Because I can.
And and I wish I would have had data back then because I would imagine it would have been like
I can only imagine your TSS was probably like, "Stop! You're killing yourself." Level, something like that.
I was like, why go out there and do a 5 hour ride when I can do a bunch of 1 hour rides at high intensity?
Yeah.
Specificity, anyone?
It's unnecessary. And not to mention that, like, usually if you're following a plan or you've got a coach, like, every workout has a purpose. And if you do it wrong, you're not hitting the purpose. And then that affects the next day, and that affects the day after that. And then eventually you're at a point where you do an assessment or you have a race, and you're like, geez, I wonder why I didn't do that the way I wanted to do it. It's because you did it wrong.
Well, that's like you see people. Um, the high intensity thing one I think a lot of people do that. And I'm coaching a guy right now, and he was like, "Oh, I this is so much more structured and different, and there's a lot more easier stuff in here, and now he's not injured and he's making progress." And he was like, "Yeah, I was doing it wrong." I'm like, "Yeah,"
Yeah.
and it's not. We all do this, or a lot of us do this. And I'm not smart. I just did a bunch of shit wrong, and then I realized it later on. It's like,
That was
um,
wrong.
I like to, what helps me, because I always go out on my little 30-minute recovery run and want to go sub 7 and crush it.
I want to crush recovery!
That's the story. Like, if I can run 6:30 here, I'll be able to run 6:30 marathon, no problem. But I like to look at my week and pick the workouts I really want to commit to. And so I kind of have, like this weekend, we have a huge weekend coming up. And I'm like, okay, everything I do going, nothing matters if I can't hit this weekend right. So I kind of hold back a little. It allows me to hold back. I'm not feeling like I'm being lazy because Saturday and Sunday I gotta have something in me for that.
I can appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
1 week out from a race, I went out today and ran 40 minutes, and I wanted to, win my 40-minute run this morning, and basically, but it helps running with the dog because she keeps you in check. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to stop and sniff here, and I'm going to just lollygag over here," and so that helps. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely appreciate that, but your advice there to keep your eye on whatever the bigger prize is, whether it's a week, the big weekend or a race or whatever, is really solid.
I just like the save your best for race day.
Yep.
And I stole that from somebody, I don't remember who, but that's, I try to always keep that in my mind, and I've even if you look at like the taper week, I've like completely softened that up because everybody goes too hard on race week, and you see these guys that are like age groupers and they're like running 5 minute miles like 2 days before the race. It's like, why? What the hell do you think is going to happen?
You are not doing anything.
Yeah. We had a couple other topics, but I don't know if we're gonna get through them. But the one thing, I see a lot of people that are not running. Their projected marathon times are not that fast, and they're running like 70 to 100-mile weeks. And there are a lot of books out there that are saying like, oh, this is what you should do. And I got one right now. I don't want to name call it out, but I got one right now, and it in the title it's specifically talking about like this is for normal people. And I opened it up and I'm like, I don't know what normal people this is. Normal Kenyans maybe, but like not normal like dudes
Normal.
dudes living in Northern California. I'm like, I couldn't do this in my best day. Like, so I think, I mean, I don't know. Does anybody know any good marathon plans? Like the Hal Higdon ones seem to be okay. I just like for people that are like doing it on their own or whatever. I
I
mean,
like Barry P out of Slow Twitch. I don't know how I feel about that. But that build
he's a
works.
100 guy though, isn't he?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but I would do the 3-2-1 where you do the 6 runs a week, but you
Okay.
do in like 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute. You do 3 10s, 2 20s, 130, and then you just kind of build your base. So then you go like 20, 40, 60, or you can do like 15, 30, 45. So you use those as your runs, and then you just kind of add, yeah, as you progress, you just sort of add to
Okay.
your
So
base number.
where does he top out? Like, what's his biggest week?
Oh, I don't. I mean, that's kind of self-enforced.
Okay. Yeah. See,
Not,
that would be a problem. Is he?
yeah,
I'm looking for something because
but
I
for
think
beginners,
people would
it's
just take that. They would just take that up. Oh, I'm running 100 miles a week because
yeah,
Barry
yeah,
P said I should keep increasing this.
yeah. I don't. I mean, I'm thinking for like beginner marathoners, just to get to the volume. I think.
Okay.
I mean, I can speak for Jackie. She did that, and she only got up to like. She's not has no huge fitness background or anything, but she only got up to like a. I think one time she added a 2-hour run in one of the weeks, or
Okay.
3-hour run, and was running a 10-minute mile. And that's the longest run she did, and everything else she just kind of built a 10, 20, 30, then to like I think she built up to 20, 40, 60 weeks and did a couple of those, and she had plenty of fitness to jog a marathon,
Nice.
like a 5-hour,
Mhm.
sub 5-hour marathon. I mean, nothing crazy, but it was like her first marathon or second marathon. Then just did a 10-minute, 9-minute run, 1-minute walk sort of thing, and that worked really, really well for her. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I know the Hal Higdon ones are good, and he's got a couple different levels.
See, I
So
think
I think,
Hal makes you run way too far
well, it depends
for
on
the
what you
first
pick.
one.
I think it
Even the
depends on
beginner
the,
ones, though, some of those are
yeah,
hard. I remember doing
yeah,
those.
yeah.
I was like,
My
geez,
very first marathon, and I don't know if Runner's World still offers it. I used a free plan off of Runner's World, my very, very first marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And the longest run there was 20 miles, but it was one 20-miler.
Yeah, I
And
think that. Yeah, you
it
don't need
was,
all that.
and that was, yeah, you really don't need to run 20 miles at all. But that was that was the last time I ever did a plan that was miles based. After that, I switched over to time.
Yeah, I think.
Um, I like doing the time base much better. And I think really there's really no reason to run much more than 2.5, 3 hours at the absolute most,
Mm.
but you can get away with 2.5 hours
See,
too.
I'm
Two
looking
hours,
at
that's really
Hal
bad.
Higdon's, and he's only having you run 4 days a week, or this. Yeah, you had 3 rest days basically, and I
That
would
must.
definitely
Which
run
one is
six.
that?
The novice one.
And
You
he's got
cross train on Sunday. I would definitely spread out, do shorter runs and just spread out the volume. That's what I would try.
frequency is going to get you a lot, and
Mhm.
but I don't know if it was a beginner that I would have them run 6 days a week.
No.
I'd say 5 days a week probably would be the max on that.
Hmm.
Um, maybe do like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a Saturday and a Sunday.
Hmm.
Um, and if that was a lot, I mean, it depends. Are they feeling some niggles or whatever? Or are they rock solid? But you could totally get away with doing, like, um, 4 days a week. You could do two paired up. You could do another one, and then like the long run.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. I just
I
think that
always
long
ran.
run though kills you so much early on.
yeah,
I always found like, and it's also no one like has time to go run 8 miles. So if you do 2 4-mile days, it's a lot easier to fit that in.
I think it depends. I mean, I only ran 4 days a week,
Hmm.
and then I would do yoga 2 or 3 times a week, and strength training and all that kind of stuff. I think that's the idea, is that you're not just running. If you're running 4 days a week, you should be doing other stuff. But I didn't really shift into running more than 4 days a week until I went back to ultra running. Like even Ironman, I ran sometimes 3 times a week, 4 times a week. I mean, granted, the run wasn't my weakness, so it does kind of depend, like what you're doing. But I think you can certainly get by with 4 days a week. I've coached plenty of people to marathons on just 4 days a week of running, presuming they're not complete rest days the other 3 days. Take that time to add some core, because I think you're doing it wrong if you're not doing core. You're doing it wrong.
I'm on my balance ball right now.
Very good.
Nice. I would say just to throw, and maybe you can agree or disagree, but I would say if you're looking for like a 4-hour marathon or greater, you shouldn't be running more than like 50 miles in your biggest week.
Oh my gosh! I don't know if I.
Well, I know. You
week.
say that, but I see these people that are like targeting like 4 or 5 hour marathons in there, and they're running like 70 miles a week, and they're
I
all
don't even think
miles a week.
I don't even think you need to get to 50. I think 40 is fine.
Yeah, I mean, I've done my typical Ironman. If you did the average for my Ironman marathon training, it's probably 25 miles a week.
Yeah.
So. But I mean,
Definitely.
but you could say, oh, well, you got a background in running. Fair enough, I can take that. But I think when you're, people that are going out there and they're, I got to do my long run. I'm going to run 22 miles, and it took me 4.5 hours. You're not getting a benefit out of that. That's actually hurting you, I think.
Okay.
And I'm definitely, I'll barter with people. Like if they, I'll ask them, what do you need to see? And if they say, well, I need to see this many miles, and that many miles equals a 3 hour and 15-minute run, I'll allow that. But if it was like a 4 hour and 15 run, I would not.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, and then look at how much time it takes to recover from it. If you're like wrecked into the following, like Thursday from a Sunday run, that is not good for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what I don't know what mileage you've been doing for the 100-milers, Vince, but I didn't even do some of the kind of mileage people are purporting for marathons. I didn't do that for a 100-miler. I think my biggest week was 85 miles. And that was it. And my biggest run, well, I did a 55-mile race, so that was my biggest run, but my training runs never even came close to that. I think the weekly mileage isn't the thing you need to pay attention to so much as the strength that you're building and how you're running those miles, what you're doing with them, and how you're feeling. Yeah, for sure.
I remember, we'll need to wrap this up pretty quick, but I remember back when I first started doing Ironman, I went out for, I don't remember what the distance was, it was probably like a 3-hour run, and I remember just completely melting down within like, the last 3 miles or whatever, and I remember like stopping my Garmin, standing on the side of the road, just totally dying. I think it was probably hot, I was sweating, and I was like, I'm gonna finish this up, and I'd hit the thing, and I'd run like 10 feet, and I'd turn it off again, and I pretty much like bullshitted my way back, and I'm like, yeah, baby, I ran whatever, however many miles it was. That was a bullshit run. I was doing it wrong.
Yep. Yeah.
Gaming the Garmin. That should be a whole episode right there.
What is it?
Gaming the Garmin.
I know. Oh man, and I can tell you so many stories about that too. But I mean, on the other side of that, it's like I remember when I was in great run shape, and I would do that long run, and I would completely nail my times, and I would be recovered, the day after, or 2 days after. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And
exactly.
That's really what you're looking for. And if it's not, and you're like saying, I need to do this again, and you're just being dishonest with yourself, I don't think that's productive. And I just told you I was that guy, so
Mm-hmm.
You can be that person too. I'm just thinking, I think you can kind of, maybe, save yourself some time and do things a little better, and you'll probably come up a little faster.
we could have easily renamed this show "Don't Do What I Did."
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do.
But I will say, I'm a lot smarter now, and I know, Vince, you are too, a lot smarter now, because you've made these mistakes and you're like, well, that was freaking stupid. That didn't get me anywhere except injured, burnout, tired, overtrained, whatever, all of these things. And it's, I think that there's little things you can do that add up big and ensure that you can race on race day.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I think we must be out because Vince has to go to his dark web conference.
He's all dressed up and he's looking good today. Nike.
is dressed
Well,
up.
I'm always like afraid to wear like a work shirt now because Scott gave me crap that one day. He was like, "Ooh, would your mom buy you that shirt?" Or something.
I just like how you have your dress tech tee on, so you're dressed up.
Very nice.
All
All right.
right.
So this was you're doing it wrong episode. Next, I was gonna try to get that swimmer guest on.
Yeah, let's get a swimmer guest on.
Okay, and I have somebody lined up too.
Yeah, and
Okay,
Andy
good.
wants to come too. So we're gonna have lots of interviews coming up.
Awesome.
On that note, thanks for listening to episode 12 of Yanking Chains. You're doing it wrong. We'll see you in 2 weeks, hopefully at 6 a.m. so I don't have to wake up so early.